Good morning.
Good morning, Miss Kimberly. How are you? And how's Erik?
I'm tired. Eric's great.
I bet you're tired. You've been traveling. Me too. I'm
Yeah,
gonna
yeah.
stick
I had
around
to
for a
stay up
while.
late last night. My son didn't do homework.
Oh no, that's not
What'd
good.
you say?
Yeah, I've been traveling around too. California, visit relatives in Norway. So it's nice to stay put, right, Erik?
Yeah. He says, "What's up, Mom?"
Not much. You want to get started? We got some interesting things to talk about today.
He's blowing you kisses. He's
Well,
so sweet. He got real mushy. He says, "Of course, Mom."
oh, I love you. So this is Erik used to stutter when he was little, and he went to speech therapy. Well, one day, um, he broke this little choo-choo train, this engine that went to a train set, and he got in trouble for it because he wasn't supposed to be playing with it. And so I went in to see him at speech therapy, and they do this thing where they go down their arm and say, my name is Erik Medhus. But I went in and she showed him a picture of a train, and he's going, the train that I broke. That it didn't work out on him. So that was funny.
Oh,
Poor. But anyway, I want to talk about stuttering because a lot of people have brought this up as a topic they want to talk about.
he says he's actually given a lot of information about this real quick. So he's showing. I just kind of asked him. I'm like, "What is it? Why do people stutter?"
Yeah.
And he's showing. He's showing it's a great stagnancy, like his words verbatim are, it's a great stagnancy from the past. And what he means by past is like past life. So patterns that develop within your soul at the soul level that continue and carry in such a strong way that they manifest, in this way. He calls it like a nervous tick, and it
Okay.
has a lot to do with your self-worth, like your self-worth. He doesn't really want to use the word confidence because even like confident people stutter,
Yeah.
he says.
True.
So it's more about self-worth. And so he says it's funny, he's talking really fast today. Um, when I said that, he looked at me, he goes, "What? Haven't you had enough coffee to keep up?" So anyway,
I haven't.
um, he's he's talking about how someone who's really confident can project like confidence, but still have issues of self-worth. It's almost like a
Hmm.
mask. So then
Ah.
it's in the issues of self-worth, like the confidence is a mask. Like they
Okay.
project that, but then they go back home in their quiet space, and he's showing them sort of introverting and kind of almost going back to that empty space, where there's no self-worth or a great lack of self-worth. And then but Mom, most of the time he says it's subconscious. So they don't
Okay.
even realize that their self-worth is not whole.
And it's tied
And
to a
he says,
past life. It's tied to another life. The self worth
he
issue
says,
mostly. Okay.
he says most of the time. Sometimes it's current life, but he's showing like he's saying, so a lot of times the people aren't aware of the lack of self-worth, and so they have these or they develop this tick, like this nervous outlet. Oftentimes, he says these people will not just have this one issue. They will have. He thinks he's funny because he's trying to make me stutter because I just keep repeating him, and so now I'm starting to stutter.
Uh-oh.
Um, but he says that they'll have more than one tick, he calls it, most of the time. You'll see someone who stutters doesn't just have that one thing, that one, whether it's, you see, it's a weird example. He says that like nervous people or people with these nervous ticks, you'll see them like dig at their scalp a lot,
Okay.
which is weird. And he's showing like other things that they do, like peeling on their fingers, chewing on their fingernails, all sorts of different things. And it comes back to, so I said, okay, I just kind of said, well, get a little bit deeper with the lack of self-worth. I've heard that too many times. I want something more. And he says
Ooh,
that
look who's
it's
being all
like,
demanding and what?
well, I do. I get in this mode sometimes where I'm like, yeah, I've heard that a million times. Give me something new, right? So he says, well, when you go beyond self-worth, like the reason why there would be a lack in that area is it goes back to what we have heard 100 times before. When we're not mindful, no, okay, he changed that. When we're not mindfully present, then the self-worth is like just floating out in outer space. He's like showing it just being real lofty. So bring yourself back here now, be present, and then the self-worth like sort of naturally blossoms, he shows.
Okay.
Too many times when we're not now, when we bring ourselves and our awareness all over the place, again, and he'll get into past life patterns and how they come into our current consciousness and develop these tics here in just a second. But he says, here and now in this life, too many times we get all wrapped up with things that are not of the now. And when we do that, when we try to place ourselves elsewhere or awareness elsewhere, it's like we steal from ourselves. He says, like we're robbing ourselves from being true. He's making fun of me, man. He's hard on me today too. I'm hard on him.
Pick on a girl when she's down. Come on.
He says he's like robbing. He's like, you said that weird. You emphasized that weird. But anyway, so he's talking about like when we take our thoughts outside of the now and then we get nervous about it, we're robbing from ourselves the ability to have that self-worth and the capacity to be present with it. That's when all these nervous tics come about. People get nervous, they eat weird, or they don't eat, they stutter, they have all sorts of manifestations. So Mom, it's a lack of mindfulness, it's a lack of presence, he says. Of course you can change it, because I said, well, okay, how can you change it? He says, of course you can change it, but he wants to get into the patterns first, real quick. The past life patterns.
Well, before you do that, it seems like one pattern, one past life thing would be being denied the ability to communicate. Like, maybe you're a woman who's not allowed to speak in a political realm, and, you got killed because you were outspoken. I don't know. I'm just making things up. It's better than the digging of the scalp example, though. I'll say that. But go ahead.
He says, the examples you gave go back to self-worth issues, and even like you keep using the word dignity. So having dignity within yourself. So even like these past life patterns, what you begin to see unfold is, let's say, for example, it's a religious belief that women don't speak. And then all of a sudden they're liberated from that, he says, and when they do begin to speak, they stutter. Or they have trouble expressing themselves. It goes back to that lack of worth. Before you weren't good enough to speak. But then, okay, so he's showing like past life patterns and how they come in. And this is more what he wants to emphasize about this is not necessarily the root of the speech issue, but more the stagnancy. So it's an emotional stagnancy, Mom, too, he says, for people. So like this emotional stagnancy manifests in this way as stuttering. That's past life patterns that he's referring to. He circles the word stagnancy and says that this is like this is like most common, or like what's the feeling with this? It's so if it comes from a past life, then it's an emotional stagnancy that's manifested in this way. In this life, kind of the same thing, but both examples, he says it still boils down to it becomes a nervous tic because of lack of presence. That lack of presence also like feeds into the lack of self-worth and value, like personal power, personal value, knowing your worth. Um, but he even, it's funny because he uses, every time he talks about this, like self-worth, he uses self-worth and self-love like interchangeably. He keeps using those back and forth.
Well, why did you stutter, Eric? Was it something from past life?
No, he says it wasn't from a past life. This is how I know when he's referring to himself, he'll put his hand on his chest. He says for him it was more of a fear being misunderstood, or not taken seriously. Like, I want to be, and he says a lot of people deal with this too. They want to be understood and they want to feel valid in that. Like, whatever they express is being validated by whoever they're expressing it to. And it's interesting. He's actually referring to, I kind of forgot about this, a family friend of ours that he's a grown man, he stutters terribly. And he's referring to him. This is why he stutters. For him, it's a fear of being misunderstood and wanting to be understood in a certain way. So it's
you want to get it right. You want to get the words right. So there's a lot of pressure. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's when you see it's like almost OCD about it coming out right. Or being expressed correctly. But a lot of times it's not conscious. It's almost like because he's showing like no control, having no control over it when they restart that phrase or that sentence, 10 times. It's feeling aligned with what they're going to say or feeling aligned with what they're expressing.
Okay.
And it's like waiting for that alignment to occur. When we're waiting, that's when you see the stutter manifest. So there's a lot of dynamics that come in, he says.
Well, do you want to talk about ways to approach it, or are you still talking about the pattern thing?
Yeah, it's so funny because he goes, "You want to change it? Okay, here's how."
Okay.
He's so matter of fact about everything.
I guess past life regression can help in some cases when it is related to past life, right?
He says there's a lot of things you can do if you stutter, if you have speech issues, even like, oh man, this is interesting. He's even going into like expressive aphasia where,
oh yeah, where they can't
and that's
express
a whole other,
yeah,
like where you
can't say a word,
so,
you can't express yeah.
Interesting. I never thought about that. He said that stuttering is a form of expressive aphasia.
Well, that's
I guess I
kind of
never
true.
thought about it like that.
Yeah.
But he says, so for stuttering, to help realign yourself with self-expression, because that's the root of the issue, first you must find out the cause. He says past life regression would be necessary in some cases, but what would be more effective to start is he's showing like a counseling setup where someone is counseled on their self-worth, or even, I guess counsel is the best word. So it almost feels like an interview, like interviewed about their confidence and their worth.
So cognitive therapy, maybe. Cognitive therapy, is that what you're talking about, Eric? Talk therapy?
Right, talk therapy that addresses like confidence and self-worth, and that's just a piece of the puzzle. He's like, okay, you got that piece? Keep it there, he says. And then he's also showing this too could come into, I guess, this counseling, because he says then you'll address and you need to talk about the power of presence and being present with what you're trying to express. Because when you're not aligned with it, that's when you have a hard time and you can't express it.
How do you do that? Breathing techniques to keep you in the now?
So he's showing individuals kind of like, right, going through different phases of like progressive therapy to declutter the mind. He's like, people that stutter often have a cluttered mind and a lot of like thought debris. So they have to pray, meditate, cleanse, do whatever you need to clear your thoughts, to align with like self-expression. Because he says, Mom, oftentimes people too that stutter, it's like their mind is racing, like there's so much energy up in the head. So to get it to like slow down, it's almost like ADHD. Like you
Yeah.
can't focus, like a hard time focusing.
Yeah, I get
And
that. Yeah.
he's like, ta-da, what do we call that? A lack of presence.
Yeah.
So when you're really here and now, you have no trouble with focus or concentration. And that's what these people need. They need to recenter their awareness into the now. He's also showing like, okay, he's showing a couple things, being guided by like a guided meditation or a healer, shaman, whatever you want to call it. But it's attunement through like sound therapy. Like
Oh, okay.
he's actually showing a monk like cracking like a singing bowl, like a Tibetan bowl,
Okay.
and so he's really excited about this for some reason. He's like jumping up and down. But he says people that stutter would benefit from, because he says people like me, you know, it's hard to focus. So you sit down, and if they're told, just focus on the sound. That's all. Just listen to it. Focus on what you're hearing. That's why it's easy. He says that's why it's effective, because it's easy for people to focus on the sound. So what they're doing is they're becoming present, and they're learning how to disconnect from and not be like bombarded by all their thoughts. When you're present, you have a stronger ability to express yourself, he
And
says.
you can get those Tibetan singing bowl chants or whatever, I don't know, meditations. You can get that on iTunes. I'm sure they're on YouTube also. Any substances
Right?
that would help, like CBD oil or I don't know, anything, aromatherapy, any other kind of therapy that would help?
He says, okay, um, okay, hang on, okay, so real quick, if you guys go to omimports.com, it's just omimports.com. That's a great website for really
Okay.
inexpensive Tibetan bowls and stuff like that.
Okay.
Um, but he says, any tool, he says, think about it, Mom, any tool, if someone were to sit down and buy their own bowl and listen to it, or burn
Hmm.
incense or oils, if you focus on that, what you're doing is bringing yourself into the present moment. Same thing with like journaling. He's showing like writing. You focus on that, and you become present. It kind of like aligns your energy. He gets mad at me. I have a habit of saying it kind of, or it sort of. It just comes out like that. And he's like, not kind of, it
Oh,
does.
it's so funny.
So
But is there
it
anything
does
that a person
realign.
can do as they are talking to keep from stuttering? I mean, because they can't go around with the singing bowl and business meetings and all that kind of stuff.
Right. He says, wouldn't that be cool if they could?
Yeah.
Um, He says, as they're talking, if someone has trouble stuttering, things that they could do as they're talking is to slow down. Most of the time, again, the reason why they can't get it to come out right the first time or smoothly the first time is because they're already thinking about something else, or the next thing they're going to say, or it's like they're processing 10 other thoughts at the same time while they're trying to say this thought over here. So slow down and align like emotionally with what you're trying to express, what you're
Ah,
trying to say.
okay.
Um, that will help. It takes practice. It takes
Yeah.
practice and awareness, he says. But don't overthink it. He says as soon as you do, you'll fuck it up.
That's true. That's true. And I'm sure all sorts of speech therapy, probably one of the biggest components is that you are being asked to focus on a task in speech therapy. So you are being asked to be in the now. So, but
That's
speech
that.
therapy did help you. Anything else on stuttering before we close?
He says he's just offering compassion. He says those of you with stuttering, speech impediments, like pronunciation issues, he says, of course, work on self-expression, throat chakra,
Oh,
emotional connection to what you're saying. But he says don't let your self-worth go down the drain because you have a hard time expressing what you
yeah.
need to. Um,
Yeah, work on the
reverse it.
throat chakra. That's right. I mean, you can listen to sounds that clear the throat chakra, and you can wear blue, a blue tie, a blue shirt, sleep in blue sheets, things like that. That would probably help.
Right.
Okay.
It's easy, Mom. He says it just takes like repetition over and over.
Sure.
And then it's like you align, and he's showing even again like emotional alignment with what you're trying to say, what you're trying to express.
Yeah, if you emotionally
Um,
align yourself with what you're going to express, it seems like that would also bring you into a now moment as well.
he says also that um, he's just kind of rambling and talking about how anyway, he says people with like stuttering problems generally harbor or like embody a lot of energy. So they're always like excited, or their attention's all over the place. So they need to ground. The way that you truly properly ground yourself is being present, being mindful in the moment, and observing yourself. That's how you ground yourself. Because he says if they could just get rid of half of that energy, they wouldn't have stutter problems.
Yeah.
There's so much energy built up, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what um, that's what he said. These are his words. That's what charges the stutter.
And there's
That's what.
grounding meditations. There's also grounding meditations too that you can get online, iTunes, etc.
There's
So,
all kinds. Yeah,
and
guided meditations would
grounding
be.
techniques. Yeah, you can look up grounding techniques. Sometimes just walking barefoot in the grass, hugging a tree, connecting yourself to the core of the earth. There's all sorts of ways to ground yourself. You guys can Google it. Anything else?
Right. He says just that I love you.
I
Oh,
love you too.
he's blowing me a
I'll
kiss.
talk to you in a little bit about something else that's interesting. So stay tuned, people. Also, don't forget you can reach Kim at kimbabcock.net. .net, not .com. Go to Erik's site, www.channelingeric, Eric spelled with a K.com. And please be sure you like and subscribe to this video if you do, or even if you don't.
That's right.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.